You're listening to Morning Edition on this Monday here on WCBU. I'm Rich Drager. A pending property sale that would see O'Brien Steel acquire land near the Illinois River from the Detweiller Trust has drawn scrutiny from community members over the potential loss of river access and green space. Last week, the Peoria Park District Board narrowly voted down a proposal tied to the sale that would have expanded the right-of-way along the Rock Island Greenway Trail. Another potential aspect of the sale would see the City of Peoria vacate Caroline Street near the Detweiller Marina. As part of our regular interview series, Peoria City Manager Patrick Urich talks with reporter Joe Deacon about the city's possible involvement in the process.
At this point, Caroline Street is still open and access to the marina occurs. If that sale goes through and access to the marina is closed off at Caroline Street, I think that it would be incumbent on the city to look at what we could do to provide access to the marina on Spring Street. So that's something that we would certainly want to have that conversation with the residents, the Detweiller Trust, and talk about how we could ensure that there was public access. I know that many of the residents don't want Caroline Street to be closed, but quite frankly, as the city manager, I'm not sure that we want to maintain a street that is surrounded on all three sides by an industrial business operation.
So in that case, the city would be looking at vacating Caroline Street. What would that process entail?
Well, the vacation or the sale of the street would go to the city council, and they would consider whether we either vacated it or whether we sold the property for a negotiated sum.
So why do you think then that if it's surrounded by all O'Brien Steel property, why is that not ideal for the city?
Well, we would be plowing a street that is surrounded by an industrial property owner. There would be no public reason for anyone to be on that street, so that's the reason why.
Beyond and apart from this real estate process, in general, what is the city's interest and course of action in guaranteeing riverfront preservation and possibly the continued use of the marina?
My understanding from the last proposed sale, there is no riverfront property that is being proposed to be sold. This is a portion that is currently a parking lot, and then another portion of some green space that abuts the railroad tracks. So it's kind of the westernmost portion of the Detweiller Marina property. So the city has spent a considerable amount of money acquiring land along the Peoria riverfront to ensure that there is public access. You have public access from the Bob Michael Bridge to Spring Street before you get to the trust. Almost all of that land in that stretch is owned by the city, some of it the Park District. There are a couple of private property owners in that area, but we have made a 50-year effort to try to ensure that we had access to that riverfront for the public. You know, I think that we would continue to look at what we can do and have those conversations with the Park District, the residents, and the trust if the sale goes forward to just see how we can continue to make that happen.
And beyond just that specific area, you said that's a long stretch of public riverfront, and you're going to be pursuing the amphitheater project in that area. There's a lot of things that can still happen along the riverfront. So
yes, we're looking at an $11 million donation for the D. Hengst Amphitheater in Festival Park. We're still waiting on $15 million of grant funds from the state of Illinois to help us to redo the Peoria riverfront. We are committed to ensuring that there is active use of the riverfront up and down from the Bob Michael Bridge up to Spring Street. And even further if the Detweiller Marina is going to stay and continue.
Where does the city stand with potentially luring another attraction to replace the Spirit of Peoria that's been gone for a couple of years now?
We've explored some concepts and tried to see if there was anyone that had some interest up and down the river. And at this point in time, there wasn't. So, we're looking at some ways that we can utilize the barge that the Spirit operated from in a different manner. So stay tuned.
That was Peoria City Manager Patrick Urich speaking with Joe Deacon for WCBU Reports. Check out more of the conversation at WCBU.org. You're listening to Morning Edition.